You guys can hear me fine, right?
How's it going, everyone? Welcome. We're super excited to have you. Right now, you can only see me because we can't figure out how to let everyone share their video, but we're working on that. So hopefully you'll be able to see everyone's smiling faces. As you come in, why don't you tell us where you are coming from? Tell us where you're listening from. Maybe tell us, how big your portfolio is. We're excited to have you here and hear it. You guys will be watching, but this will be recorded. So I guess if you talk to someone who didn't see it, tell them it's recorded because they won't know. They're not here. But yeah, and then we've got a great panel today. If everyone wants to say hi, you can.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Should we
We're
do
going to give it
intros?
like a couple more minutes, then we'll get started. So we'll let people kind of come in. We're pretty excited to talk about like first roundtable this year. Hey, Andrew. Let me see if I can like
Technical support here. Yeah, I'm looking at why videos are off. And folks, panelists might have to log off and sign back in, but give me a second. I'm just going to hang here and we'll get it sorted, okay? Missing your lovely faces.
Right. People from all over. Lots of Florida. Welcome everyone from Florida. Hey Javier, how's it going, man? Hope you're having a good evening. Few people from Europe. I see a lot of names I recognize, so it's really nice to see you guys.
I see a lot of places that are warmer than where I'm at and a lot of places that are colder. So I guess I'm in the middle.
So I live in Washington State, and roughly a week ago, I was like, oh, I need to get out of this cold. I'm gonna go to New Orleans. And it was like 30, it was colder in New Orleans than it was in Spain.
Yeah, it was like
I didn't bring a coat either.
Oh, John.
Oh man.
I also didn't look at the weather report. Dubai, awesome. All right, we'll let people filter in for another minute here and then we'll get started. I'm sorry your faces aren't visible, guys. We'll
Me
Photoshop
too.
you in using AI.
We're gonna solve it. We're gonna solve it. It's very strange. Never happened yet.
We've only been using Zoom now for what, 3 years, and we're still learning every day.
I call it Zoom anxiety. It didn't update before.
Oh, can't tell you how many times that's happened. Trying to log on at the last minute.
Yep.
System update.
Awesome, tons of people. A lot of people from Europe. Appreciate you guys joining us in the evening here. How's it going, Samari? I feel like a Twitch streamer or something on these webinars sometimes. Like, hit the button, subscribe.
Yeah.
$5 shout outs.
John, I think you just told us your secret weekend
Yeah.
hashtag.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're on to something.
You need a pool in the background filled with some water and some like toys and stuff to make it really believable.
Yeah. The secret is Wheelhouse is actually working on a revenue management video game to crowdsource pricing ideas, and that's what I'm going to play on Twitch.
City Skylines.
Okay. Oh yeah, City Skylines. Basically it. Traffic management. Okay, well, why don't we get started with some introductions. We got a great group for you guys today. This will be recorded and posted on our YouTube. We're going to have a pretty cool conversation about what's kind of going on this year. And you're welcome to ask questions in the chat. I just am not going to guarantee that we'll get to them. If you've been to one of these sessions before, we don't often have enough time to answer questions in the chat, but you're welcome to ask them. And if I have a chance, I'll pay attention to them. So why don't we start with some introductions? My name is John DeRelay. I'm the head of onboarding at Wheelhouse, which is a dynamic pricing and revenue management platform in our space. Really excited to chat with you guys. We got a great panel. We'll kind of go around. Lance, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. So Lance Stitcher, Chincoteague Island, Virginia, Ocean City, Maryland. I co-own Seaside Vacations and Sales with my lovely wife, Elaine. We manage 425, pushing towards 450 properties, and been doing this since 2012.
Awesome. And Ben, would you like to introduce yourself? Oh, hey, what's up,
Yep,
Rebecca?
sure.
It works now, guys.
Put my camera on
Thanks,
for my
Andrew.
intro.
Technical problem solved.
There we go.
Good luck. Have a great
Yeah.
show.
We are real
Awesome.
people. We
Best.
weren't just AI telling you how to price your properties.
I found the key button. I'll send notes about it later.
Um,
Sure. So I'm Ben Duncan from Horse and Stay. We've got 1,000 properties in the UK, predominantly in the north of England. I'm commercial director, so cover various different areas of the business, one of which is revenue management. I've been setting the pricing for our portfolio since the beginning, so for about 5 to 6 years now, so quite a while.
awesome. Thank you, Ben. Josh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Joshua Murphy. I'm with Life in Paradise Vacation Rentals. We're based out of Port Aransas, Texas. Currently, we manage about 561 units down here. We're locally owned, family owned, and I've been doing this since about late 2020, August 2020.
Perfect. And Henry, back on the show. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Henry Corell. I work for Goodnight Stay. We manage about 400 listings in between Arizona and Nashville, Tennessee. And I've been doing this for about 6 years. So I've seen a lot.
Perfect. And Rebecca, pleasure to have you back as well.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. My name is Rebecca Ballart. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Rev Research, revenue management consultant firm. We have about right around 40 clients all across the world. So we are in quite a few different markets, and Lance is one of our clients. So hopefully, he won't roast us too bad since I'm here to kind of, but it's been fun to kind of see that model of how we work with people that love data as much as we do. So it's always fun to kind of talk data to people that actually like it. So
Perfect. Well, let's get kind of talking. This is the first session we're doing this year. We'll be doing it roughly once a month. But the kind of first thing I want to talk to you guys about is, we all just went through the holiday season. Holiday is really interesting for folks. I've had a lot of conversations about the various strategies we see and what works and what doesn't. But I'm curious, in your guys' portfolios, how did the end of the year finish up for you? How did your holidays go? What strategies did you use? What strategies did you have to change? And let's just kind of talk about the end of the year. How did that wrap up? And maybe we can start with Josh today.
Yeah. So we're a beach destination. So from really September after Labor Day, going to the end of the year, we don't get too much in terms of occupancy or any bookings really, unless it's like a holiday or random nice weekend. So it's really last minute stuff that we see. But overall, end of the year, we closed out better than we thought. We saw a tank in the market like everyone saw in 23 for like summer, spring break, but what really caught up was the last minute pushes that we were doing. We did a lot of coupons, a lot of price cuts, just a lot of heavy lifting on individual units, and really running reports based on history going into 22, so percentages off, stuff like that, with basically what owners expect. But 23 ended pretty good for us. We did see quite a few new units on board from probably about 4th of July to December. I'd say about 50 or so units. So that did help with kind of overall for us. But again, we're a beach destination. We got good, decent occupancy for Thanksgiving. At the time, I'd say 530 or so listings that were live for Thanksgiving. We were about 65% occupied. Christmas was probably closer to 55% out of about the 550 we had at that time. And then obviously we were floated through, from Labor Day to end of year, probably around 25% occupancy, give or take, but we stayed ahead of the city in terms of pacing. So running reports, we did pace ahead of them. So that's good. That's really our goal at the end of the year, because we do a lot of stuff as far as marketing owners, like, hey, how we're doing. But I think we did pretty good overall.
Awesome. I think this is a good point as we kind of go around here. Holidays are really different for everyone. So if you kind of let us know what occupancies you're expecting for Thanksgiving and Christmas, so that when we say we're doing pretty good, we know that 65 for you is pretty good because you're a market where it's maybe not too strong. I'm also curious where if you guys are in a market where like these holidays don't sell out, how do you price them? Like, do you start them really high and then drop them? When are you dropping these roughly? Or do you not drop them at all? Or like that's what I'm curious, because there's so many different holiday strategies I talk to people about. I think people would like to hear it. So you're welcome to add anything to that, Josh. And then maybe once you're finished, we can go to Henry.
Yeah, pricing for holidays for us in terms of like Thanksgiving and Christmas, those are pretty much at our off-season rates, which is about a 40% decrease off of what you'd get for summer, maybe even 50% or 60% for like a condo. So it really takes a steep dive to get to occupancy levels that we had. Really the peak percentages in terms of ADRs that we see is summer, obviously spring break. We have a holiday called Samfest that takes place in April every year for a weekend. But really winter time and fall, it's about a 50, 40, 60, even 70% decrease depending on the unit, the size, all that stuff.
So not a huge time for you, but you did pretty well. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Henry, what about your portfolio? How'd the holidays and the end of the year wrap up?
Yeah, the holidays year over year definitely were down. Gives you a little insight on how to price them out forward. We're going to be much more conservative. December was slow in both markets, both Arizona and Nashville for us. And then Christmas behaves in Nashville. We really don't get too much occupancy there, so we're not too aggressive with the rates. New Year's Eve is where we get most of our revenue associated for that time frame. Something interesting that I found when we're about halfway through December is there's a lot for Nashville, a lot of last minute bookings. Like key data, you could use the same time last year and then where it ends up at. And I was seeing pretty significant jumps. So I wasn't too scared, and I wasn't trying to do bottom barrel rates because it makes sense for Nashville just being a drive-in market. People wanting to book last minute. Hey, let's do something fun. So a lot of our units ended up getting booked within the last 2 weeks out there. And then Arizona was a little bit slower. A lot of people were trying to get premium rates. Our game plan was Christmas, basically act like it's not a holiday. New Year's Eve, depending on the home type, don't try to take too much money unless it's one of our premier units that we don't want to give away. And so someone has a party at, be pretty conservative because the market's not going to be 100% occupied for those dates. But overall, it was a slow December for both of our markets. November wasn't terrible, but we kind of saw the December lull go into January in both Arizona and Nashville.
Perfect. And just for everyone here, your portfolio makeup is primarily urban, or you manage quite a few different kinds of property types, right?
Yeah, we have in Arizona, it's all single family homes, and then in Nashville we have about 3 buildings that behave almost like hotels, and then the rest are those townhomes.
Perfect. Thank you, Henry. I think that feedback on key data especially is really helpful, being able to put that up. Maybe you can post a picture on your LinkedIn and show us all.
Yeah, no, it's interesting seeing that jump. If it's a significant change, it kind of shows you a little bit of insight of the activity that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty interesting. So far, we have 2 of our people who don't price the holidays that importantly. Lance, do you want to tell us a little bit about your holiday situation?
Sure. So we're primarily a beach market. We have what I would really call a 10-week season where we run at about 100%. On an annual basis, I'm about 47% occupancy overall. Most of that comes from May through October 15th, but we do have a good push in my southern market, which is Virginia. We have a good push for both Thanksgiving and Christmas. We hit our occupancy numbers this year, but it happened late. And if I could actually rewind a minute, our biggest mistake last year that we learned from was really in March and April. We really missed the mark in March and April, and then kind of after the fact discovered that wow, there's an awful lot of new inventory out there, or inventory that wasn't there the year before that was, you know, they were really cutting rates to the bottom. So we had to get a little bit more aggressive in the fall. And our booking window also shortened up in November and December. We got there, but that last 15% seemed to come like in the last 10 days, which kind of caught me off guard, but I was happy to see it happen.
Do you price your holidays with any kind of premium? And how does that, if you do, does that premium change throughout your booking window?
So we do. We start out about 20% higher on those holiday weekends, and we might have longer stay requirements at the beginning. Like we'll, over Christmas and New Year's, we'll start off trying to get a 4-night stay, and then 60 days out, we'll drop it to 3 days. 30 days out, 30 days out, we'll drop it to 3, and then we get to within 21 days, we may or may not drop it to 2, depending on the property. And that seemed to play you know, I think people have so many more choices now because this market's grown. So you've really got to stay up to date on what's available from other people.
Perfect. Great feedback. Thanks, Lance. Rebecca, I'm curious to hear your perspective on his portfolio now. But just kidding. Rebecca, you manage stuff everywhere, so you can give us some insight into the different ways people are managing holidays right now.
Yeah, I think the important part is identifying what your seasonality is. Obviously, the mountain area ski destinations, Thanksgiving is kind of the kickoff to ski season in a lot of markets. The weather played a huge role in that this year. They did not have the snow that they had in previous years. And when you're looking for people that are professional skiers, that, you know, they want the fresh powder. So they did see November really struggle. And so we kind of, you know, the snow is super hard because you're kind of just anticipating it. You're kind of have to be vigilant because you could drop rates and then all of a sudden the next day you get dumped with snow and all of a sudden your reservations take off. So that's been a little bit difficult, but we've had to kind of just watch it a little bit more intently. I do think the other thing that we really looked at a little bit differently this year was how Christmas and New Year's fell. You almost were able to kind of get 2 reservations out of that week if your length of stay was kind of put in correctly. So we did kind of start to dial those length of stays back a little bit more and look at that, you know, 26, 27, 28, you had these 3 dead days between these 2 reservations. Let's not hold the premiums too high during that. Let's get them down. And the chances of those booking farther out, kind of the not sought after days, really helped a lot of people kind of build some occupancy in there. So I think it's also too for our beach markets is recognizing summer is your peak season. Christmas is not your peak season. So if you're trying to get July 4th rates over Christmas, you're going to probably sit empty. And the market in a lot of these are, you know, owner centric, which is great, you know, that they want their owners to get the most for holidays, but it's also having those tough conversations that say, Santa's not at the beach. Nobody's going to pay, you know, $1,200 a night to come down when it's 30 degrees. So having that kind of strategy, yes, you can have a little bit of a bump on those, but not trying to get your summer peak rates will build your occupancy and overall your revenue. And a lot of those beach markets needed that little pickup at the end of the year to kind of just close out. Maybe it was a little bit of a softer year for them. So being strategic, having those conversations with homeowners that said, hey, like, these are not peak season holidays, but we're going to get the best we can. So really seeing how that's playing out and then just keeping that in mind for next year and making sure that those prices set farther out are more obtainable.
Awesome. Yeah. That's great insight, Rebecca. Ben, I would imagine that maybe because you guys are doing a lot of like stuff in North England. I haven't been to England myself, but I know that like kind of cottage holiday travel maybe is pretty big. Can you tell us a little bit about your holiday situation, how you guys deal with it, what was different this year?
Yeah, sure. It's very much like we have to segment our portfolio out because we've got a massive range of different types of properties, from sort of properties sleeping 12 plus, luxury, high end, large properties where you've got group stays. They obviously operate very different and need to be priced very differently across the festive period to single or studio apartments in city centre. It's just an entirely different product, and you see different booking demographics over the period. So again, much like what Rebecca's mentioned there, pricing them as such is key to make sure that we're making the most of that period across the portfolio. So where we are looking at sort of larger luxury properties that are going to be desirable for people to go for a Christmas break with a family or go for New Year's with the family and friends, etc., they'll be priced as such. So that is a premium opportunity for us. So we will price it higher. We'll have longer length of stay, etc. Whereas ultimately, when we get into the other side of the market where we've got smaller city centre properties, well, it's a really tough time to actually generate bookings, especially over the Christmas period. We see really low demand. Usually we would see sort of particularly the city centre properties in the run up to Christmas, good bookings, a lot of last minute ones with people who are going Christmas shopping. They have Christmas markets in the UK. I don't know if they do that in the US or not, but that's a big thing. So people travel for that. So we see positivity in the first weekend, but again, like there's not many people who are looking to stay for Christmas in those types of properties. But New Year, we sort of see, again, it's quite split depending on region, but generally New Year will be sold out, whereas Christmas we're running at a lower occupancy. We normally see quite good bookings between Christmas and New Year as well, which is like Twixmas, as they would call it. And again, we were expecting that to pick up, but we didn't really see the last minute bookings that we were anticipating in December, to be honest. I think that was the same across a lot of UK markets. There just wasn't as much domestic travel as we would normally see. I think there's a lot of pressures from a cost of living point of view. We've had a lot of poor weather. Obviously, it's the middle of winter, so the weather's not normally great, but it's a different type of poor weather at the moment. Like it's storms rather than there being snow, etc., which again has had an adverse impact on people traveling. People would rather travel in the snow than in the rain ultimately. So yeah, it's interesting to have seen sort of December play out. I think the key thing for us is we were expecting to see a significant portion of last minute bookings dropping in, which was really difficult to get. Again, I think Lance mentioned about new inventory coming into the market. That definitely has had an impact in that last minute booking window. It's super competitive from a price point of view. So we'll only go so far from pricing. And ultimately, there's a lot of new inventory coming in that are really at the rock bottom of the market, which makes it difficult to attract the bookings last minute because it's, like I said, super competitive. We've looked at other options in terms of like different payment structures, cancellation policies, etc., which everyone will be familiar with. But the reality is that makes a negligible impact when they're last minute bookings anyway, because people are going to have to pay in full. They're going to be strict cancellation policies at short notice. So it was tricky to generate those last minute bookings. We're seeing the same going into Q1 as well, which we'll get onto shortly, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have one follow-up question on the holidays, just for those, because a lot of you guys, mentioned that you don't have super strong holidays, but we know that, there's a certain time where people will kind of pay anything. So you have this mix where some people pay super high rates, and then most people either don't come or don't pay super high rates. When you have owners who are really demanding these kind of peak rates, when are you trying to get them to come off of that rate? Like, what is the timing that you're using to try to get them off of that? Because you do know you can capture some at high rates. It's just only going to be kind of it's a gamble on who's going to get those.
It depends
so
on
anyone could jump in.
the market, really. So we've got some properties which we know we can price high, and the larger properties are the ones that are going to sell. If we look at Christmas specifically, well, you're going to get high value bookings over that period, but they're going to be high lead time bookings. So we're expecting those to be in the calendar at least 6 months prior to Christmas. Otherwise, it's unlikely that they're probably going to materialize. So for those properties, sort of 6 months ahead, we'll start to look at price adjustments, length of stay adjustments as well for that period, which I think is key, especially for the bigger ones, because again, larger group properties, when it's high value bookings, then they're going to be organised further in advance. So if they're not in the calendar, you need to be on it and making sure that we're making the adjustments needed.
Perfect.
Most of our inventory is going to fall. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh, I was just saying, I agree with, just making sure that you're looking at the lead time. I think also looking at where the market is picking up. If you see the market picking up in those larger 5-6 bedroom homes, and not on your smaller 1 or 2 bedrooms. Like, I think you really have to segment out your unit size to see where, you know, 1 by booking window, but 2 by segmentation of where the market is also seeing pickup is another indicator on when you need to have those tough conversations.
Yeah. So 90% of our market's going to fall in 2 to 4 bedroom size range. I don't really have to deal with the 12 plus bedroom issue and the lengthy booking windows that are required there. But I know that like in our markets, the premium properties are probably going to book a little bit earlier than what I'll call, you know, our target booking window in the off season of 45 to 60 days. So by the time we get into that, you know, by the time we get into that 45, 50-day window, I feel like that it's time to bring those prices back to reality because we've missed the people that are trying to secure a specific property. Once we get into that, you know, 30 to 45-day range, it's kind of like whatever's available at work.
Mhm.
Yeah, for
The other
us,
thing you
it's
have to think about.
oh, sorry, you can
Sorry.
go.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say the other thing you have to think about too is those bigger, larger homes. We have a handful of them out in Arizona. It's a much scarcer product, the same way that in Nashville we're doing combo listings. So now we have 8-bedroom homes or 2 townhouses, but it's a more scarce product. So there's a smaller demographic looking for it, but then also knowing the demographics per unit type, they're much different and they behave much differently. And something that I do a lot is just look at different economic factors that might be affecting those demographics. And so those factors might be showing you signs that, you know, maybe our mid-tier homes are going to struggle a little bit more, not just because there's more supply, but it's because the people that usually rent those homes, they might have less money in their pocket in the next few months. So those are just some indicators. But yeah, it's the behavior between the larger homes all the way down. They behave completely differently. It's interesting.
Yeah, for us, it's kind of changed year over year, and really, it's a lot of new supply, new homes being built down here. It really was before, if you had a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom and up, and at least if the 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom had a pool, those were always, you know, scarce and they booked first no matter what. And you could really ask, you know, whatever price you wanted in the summertime. Now it's kind of shifted to where 5 and up has turned into what I call no risk house, to where, you know, you can price it pretty much like normal and not worry about it not being booked. But what we saw for 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, even condos, maybe some that had a pool or not, they just didn't fill up in summer for the first time in, you know, 2 years. And obviously 22 and 21 were kind of unique in the sense that we had a really big surge in demand from coming out of COVID and travel restrictions, because Port Aransas is a drive-to place. No one's flying to come here. We have kind of captive markets pretty much with San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas, Fort Worth area coming down here. But really for us, it's we took the data we saw from 23 and we actually made a video. It's an 1.5 hour long video of just explaining to owners, hey, we don't want to set you up for failure going into 24. This is really what you need to do. And so we sent that out to all the owners, really drilled down on each, you know, category of house, whether you're a 1-bedroom condo all the way up to a 10-bedroom home. And we just said, hey, this is where you should be if you're here. You know, if you don't, you know, if you don't feel comfortable with us doing that, obviously we'll price the unit how you want, but this is really where you should be in order for you to succeed this year. And we kind of preempted, instead of having a booking rolling and having the owner call saying, hey, why'd you book for this low? Or, hey, why am I not filled up yet? We kind of just preempted and made that and just kind of try to educate them on what was going on and what our strategy should be for 24.
That's huge.
Anyone else want to jump in on this? Otherwise, we can shift over to what people probably want to hear about. I mean, we don't have to worry about the holidays till next year. What's been going on in January for you guys? And how is that impacting what you're thinking going forward? I'm pretty excited to hear what some of you guys have to say. Lance, you mentioned already that you noticed some issues with your strategy last spring. So I'm curious to see what you're seeing now and how that's also affecting what you're planning to do for your high season in summer.
So for me, the January, February, and to a certain extent March are not significant. March and April start to carry a little bit of significance, particularly in my southern market, Chincoteague, Ocean City, Maryland, they may as well just close it down because nobody goes there. It's too cold. It's only 26 miles north, but it's just the way it is. We're on pace. We're pacing okay for the spring. It's not terribly exciting, but it's within range of where I'm willing to be. In fact, I actually made some rate adjustments downward today to take just because I'm not really happy with where March is tracking in my Chincoteague market. But the bright side of the coin is that we're pacing 2, 3, 4, 5% ahead of the of everything in the summertime. So my peak season is looking really, really good. I think that we're actually going to we're actually carrying a higher ADR at this point in 24 than we were in 23, which is a little bit surprising. And the occupancy rate to support it. So I'm pleasantly surprised with where we're going. And in the Mid-Atlantic, I'm a drive-to destination as well. If you follow the Interstate 95 corridor from Richmond to New York City, there's like 30% of the population of the country that lives within 5 hours of us. And that gives us a little bit of a buffer on economic impacts, because when one group of people become squeezed financially, there's somebody just above them that is, instead of going to the Hamptons for the summer, now they're going to have to go to, Virginia or Maryland or something like that. So we've got like 5 different levels, and we've seen it through a couple of past economic soft times that our region actually does well in a downturn.
That's really interesting, that consumer observation. It's also a lot of people. I should go down there and open up a dating app. I'll come visit you, Lance.
Come on, man.
Good pool of people. But that's pretty interesting observation, that kind of resiliency, because even though your target market right now may have to change their property, you have these other markets easily available. So that's really fascinating. I have been hearing from some folks that their summer's pacing pretty well. It is interesting to me to hear that your ADR is also higher, because a lot of what I've heard from people who are pretty pleased with their summer pacing has been that they're pacing behind same time last year ADR, but they're pacing ahead of kind of where they ended because so much stuff attritioned. So maybe that's partially because you made changes early last year to get ahead of what some people kind of got caught on the back foot.
It could be.
Could be. Who knows? Ben, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on? You've got a lot of different kind of portfolio stuff, and curious to see what's going on in January and what you're thinking ahead of time.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, January is an important time of year for us from a forward booking generation point of view. Obviously, a lot of our markets, similar to you guys, are summer markets, really. That's where we make a lot of the majority of the revenue for some of our key markets. We do have leisure markets where they're more off season as well, but the majority of our inventory, it's seasonal. So it's quite interesting looking at booking dynamics going into later in the year. I think we were chatting earlier about sort of January in particular for bookings checked out, and we're quite significantly down year on year. Nice, Lance. So we sort of had, again, came into January relatively on par year on year from an occupancy pacing point of view, but just struggled to generate last minute bookings again. And looking at some of the macro factors, again, we had a bit of a laugh earlier about dry January, etc., but it is a real thing. And the UK, there's quite a lot in the press over the last few days on dry January, and it being the driest January on record, which for anyone who doesn't know what dry January is, it's where you don't drink any alcohol in January. So it's quite a popular thing in the UK, more popular than it has been previously. So 1 in 5 adults actually participated in it this year, and 1 in 3 under 40s, which makes a massive impact, particularly where we've got urban properties where it's sort of pubs and clubs trade. So people going for short breaks on weekends in January, going out with their friends, going for a drink, etc., etc. That trade just hasn't been there. So we've really struggled with that last minute bookings market again in January to try and pick up demand when we were trying to gain a few occupancy points to meet our budget, and we fell short of it. So it was a bit of a frustrating month from that point of view. In terms of forward booking dynamics, we've seen a massive amount of positivity going into Q2 and Q3. So we're well up in terms of occupancy pacing and ADRs. I think a lot of that comes back to a sort of a change in strategy going into this year. Last year, we were sort of not necessarily caught out, but ended up with a lot of inventory going into the last minute market, which we still got good rates for, but it was came in a bit late. We probably could have got higher rates if we priced them a bit lower earlier on. So we spent a lot of time in Q4 just going through our rates going into summer next year and making sure they were within an acceptable sort of tolerance level of what we actually sold properties for this in 2023, and making sure that the rates that we've got are achievable. I think it's quite easy for us to talk about far out pricing at a premium to make sure that we're catching bookings and premium bookings early, but from a portfolio level, it's important also to make sure that the rates are realistic and they are within sort of 20 to 30% as a maximum really of what they were sold for the prior year. Otherwise, you're inevitably going to end up having to reduce them anyway. So we've taken that approach and it's had a really positive impact. What we've seen actually is key dates have sold really well and at premium rates, strong ADRs. And as I said, our Q2 and Q3 occupancy is up sort of 10% between the two of them in terms of increase year on year at this point. So which is really positive. And we're now taking the approach of looking at outside of the key dates that we can see the pickups really strong on. There's several periods within Q2 and Q3 that we can see low booking volume. So given we've already starting to build a really strong pipeline, we can now look at those and say, right, okay, well, let's adjust the rates for these and try and get the pickup there as well. So we're pacing really well for Q2 and Q3, which is positive, definitely.
That's good. That's good. Rebecca, you got a lot of markets to choose from. So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing, what you're thinking.
I think I would say for the majority of markets are showing a lot of similar trends of what happened last year, with, kind of spring break, kind of taking, not really seeing a huge amount of pickup for some of those beach markets like we had in previous years, right after the first of the year. It's been a little bit later. It's slow and steady is kind of the words we've been using. I think for me personally, really looking at if we're drawing these conclusions that it's operating like last year, really using last year's ADRs as where they were at this time last year and then where did they finish at as kind of a benchmark. I don't know about you guys, and this is probably get me in hot water here. Market data is really tough, like to actually use it to make decisions because everybody has a different strategy. Everybody's working with different inventory. Everyone's working with different owners. And last year there was just some people won, some people lost really bad. And so looking at, yes, I want to see where my pacing is compared to the market, but I'm focusing more on what did I do last year and where are my, weak spots? Where can I really drive revenue? Peak season and holidays, we did well. Okay, well, how do I go from good to great? Well, I look at my shoulder season. That's where I've got the opportunity to really drive occupancy, and that's not really by driving ADR there. So it's playing the RevPar game in that time frame and getting owners to really buy in to the idea of having the highest rate on the street doesn't mean you win. Like, it's not, anyone can throw a rate out there, but if it's not going to convert to a booking, it doesn't matter if they're at $800 a night and we're at $350. They might get one night at $800, but if I can make you $4,500 for the month, who won?
That's the struggle we'll always have.
Yeah. I mean,
the old
not
seesaw.
everyone will buy into that, but I do think that that's really the approach that I've taken this year, is that as some of these markets are so price sensitive that having the highest rate for especially a lot of areas, say they're heavy condos, we could get all those owners in a room and they will all debate why they have the best condo. And this is, we have this beautiful, very expensive furniture and all these things. However, the guest sees 75 units in the same location. Who's going to win? And if I can drive the RevPar there and I can get more booked nights, not only does the property manager win because they have a margin on the clean and their booking fees and all those other things, the owner wins because they're getting more at the end of the month. And so that's really the approach that we're taking with a lot of our clients, is yes, we will look at market data. Yes, we want to know if we're not way underpriced. Like, I don't want to do that during peak season and holidays, but I want to get good competitive rates during those off seasons, because now not all markets are open 12 months of the year. Like Lance is a great example. We've got a couple other in Maine. There's nothing. Like, we could make it $1, no one's coming. But there is some markets where there is a lot of revenue that is just sitting out there ready for people to have a drive destination. A lot of events, we can get into the eclipse situation that's happening this year and how rates are wild. I mean, I'm talking $500 a night for a 2-bedroom house because they're in the path of the eclipse. And they're sitting empty. So if we have all learned something from the Super Bowl last year, we should get those rates down. Even though the eclipse is in April, there's a lot to be said there. And so we can learn about that from last year.
There's
And to
sorry,
come
go
on
ahead,
top of what Rebecca, that's okay. On top of what Rebecca was just saying about my market really quick. So I've got a condo complex down the street here, about a half a mile from my office, that traditionally the owners always said, hey, my place is worth $250 a night, no matter what time of year it is. And in pretty much from October to May, they all sat empty. And I finally found one owner at first who would work with me. I said, just trust me and let me play with this. I said, you're not making any money anyway. And they were like, great, do what you need to do. And by finding what the right rate was, we went from $0 to $3,000 a month. And now we're doing $3,000 a month in 30 units where those owners had absolutely nothing before. So sometimes, you know, we have this seesaw with the ADR and occupancy, and, you know, that doesn't work.
I'm hearing a lot from you guys so far, so we'll be interested to see what Henry and Josh say, but a lot of you guys are talking about like avoiding the short window. And it's interesting because we hear, like, I hear at least a lot of people always saying the window's getting shorter, and they keep competing for that short window. You guys so far have all said we're trying to get out of competing in that short window because it's actually the highest risk, and that's something I tend to agree with. Henry, why don't we do you next? I'm pretty curious what you have to say, because you have what I would call bellwether markets, markets that have Q1 high seasons that really don't start booking in earnest until the turn of the year. And I always consider those markets, Phoenix, Nashville, Miami, you know, some of the southern city markets, as being a good bellwether for what might be happening later in the year. So what's been going on for you and your portfolio?
So yeah, January's in Scottsdale has been slow. Nashville, obviously, January, February is slow, but Scottsdale specifically, January was a bit slow. Our portfolio is pacing higher in occupancy going into February and March and April than last year. ADR is slightly down, but we also have lost some of February is our big weekend. That's the biggest weekend of the year, and we're right now out of, I think, about like 145 homes. Yeah, we have about 5 that are still vacant, a couple of those because of owner preferences. But something that we did to avoid, you know, last minute trying to scrape for everything is when we started getting those bookings, I talked to our reservations team and our marketing team, and I was like, we need to touch up these bookings because they're going to be shopping. Everyone shops now. I was like, if we can offer them a free early check-in, free late checkout, just something like that, that might deter them from canceling, and then us losing 50% of the revenue on booking. And it's much different than, like we were just talking about the Super Bowl, where it was sort of the same game plan. People were booking up further out. Our larger units, that scarcer product I was talking about, I've talked to you, John, about this a little bit, but I actually took a risk, and everyone told me not to, but some of our larger homes, I was very hesitant to drop the rate to try to get people in. I saw the other comparable homes start dropping their rates, but I was taking a risk, basically saying, once people know who's going to be in the Super Bowl, there's going to be such a flood of, you know, wealthy people paying $2,000 for a ticket coming into town, and there's only going to be like 4 or 5 nice homes that they would be okay with staying in left. And it was a bit of a risk, but within the last like week or two, we ended up getting them all filled. And even over the rates in some cases that we had advertised at the time. So it's interesting how, like, you know, the different, the different holidays kind of they act so differently depending on, you know, the demographic coming in and everything with that. We were trying to be more conservative this year with Phoenix Open, and then also with February and March. And what we're trying to do too is really just get our weekdays, not try to charge any premiums on the weekdays. That's just extra on top. And then looking forward, just same game plan as 2023, get ahead of the curve, try to extend our booking window, get that base business in. And it's been proving to bring in quite a lot more in revenue. So I'm happy to see that after 2023.
Oh, I heard you say base business. I don't think Randy's in the room today, but I'll call it out when we on the YouTube forum.
Base business. Do people, does everyone know what base business is?
Nope.
Just like a nice level further out, you know, then you can start charging premiums if it's outside of the booking window. Gives you the opportunity, because especially once you get the base business, the algorithms are going to start pushing your property up more. And that's huge. And I feel like I've been seeing Airbnb, not so much VRBO, but Airbnb. I don't know if they changed their algorithm, but they are pushing specific homes like crazy. Like they've been weighing them much heavier. Like we'll get calendars that just start getting booked up immensely. Like then I can't even raise the rates quick enough until they get booked. It's crazy. So it's playing with that too.
Good phrase, that, Henry. I'm gonna pick that one up and use it.
Yeah, build your base business so that you can take less risk in the short term. Before I move to Josh real quick, just to clarify on your Super Bowl example, you were only doing that in a certain segment of your homes, right? Or was that a general strategy? Did you hear me?
Josh?
Me?
No, Henry.
I thought you said, say that again to the question. Sorry.
That Super Bowl strategy you did, were you only doing that in a certain segment of homes, or was that your overall strategy for all of your properties in Phoenix?
Only our very high end, because I also knew that people who don't usually Airbnb their homes, they were going to be putting them on just for a weekend. And I was like, just hearing from my friends talking about wanting to do it, I knew the supply was going to go up. So those homes definitely be more conservative with. But the top tier homes, those are rare, they're scarce. And I knew that people were going to be coming in, like in Old Town Scottsdale, they're going to be spending $10,000 to $20,000 on a table. You know, might as well for 3 nights, you know, stay somewhere extremely nice. And when the time came, we were the only management company really with those high-end homes left, and we had travel agents calling us for all these, you know, celebrities and whatnot, looking for trying to get us or get them whatever we had left, and actually raised the daily rate, taking that risk. But it was a risk.
Got to build an auction site for these like super high events, right? Josh, why don't you tell us what's going on in your markets for January, what you're thinking coming into the spring and the summer here?
Yeah, January and February for us, it's we get a lot of what's called winter Texans. So it's the people that come from Minnesota, northern states where it's cold. They want to come down here to where it's warm and nice, even though it hasn't been for until probably about this week. But we are usually about 50% occupied out of our homes for winter Texans, and that's where we're currently at, is about 52% occupied with these longer term stays. So overall, we're not doing too bad. They tend to pick the smaller stuff, the 2s, 1s, the condos. They pick the smaller houses. So it helps those owners tremendously when it comes into the year and they're looking at the revenue. Those winter Texans, they help a lot. They're not really looking at the big stuff. But for 24, and this is kind of mirroring what Rebecca mentioned earlier, but we really are analyzing how our 23 was and seeing where we failed. And so we are not doing any kind of premium for dates like 4th of July, Memorial Day. Summer really is one price now, with weekdays being discounted, tremendously, because we had a lot of holes in summer where just stuff wasn't booking. And so we're really, I wouldn't say giving it away, but we're not pricing summer as much of a premium. Similar to what Henry said, to just build up that base business, get people in, get people to book, and then just have it trend up if it needs to from there. And spring was a really bad time for us. A lot of it was weather because it seemed like every other weekend was rainy. And for us, at least, people do tend to book stuff last minute. And again, trying to hop out of that short booking window and holding on and hoping something books. We're just trying to, all right, here's a 2-bedroom condo, $200 a night for, a weekend in spring, go for it. And it's on average, I think we're about $250 less than average market right now, but stuff's booking. And there's quite a few owners who've emailed saying, hey, I'm already, getting some stuff for spring, good job. They like seeing that because, calendars to an owner, it's a very emotional thing. You can explain ADRs and you can try to help them find a balance between occupancy and stuff. But at the end of the day, they're very emotionally driven by seeing that calendar filled. And I'd say more often than not, they're okay with you filling up key dates for non-key dates for whatever price you ask, as long as it's filled. And really that's what we're doing, is we're just trying to maximize occupancy, really not trying to go for the gusto on ADRs, because ADRs, they were higher last year for like the larger homes, but again, there was holes where they just didn't book. And what a few owners have actually ended up letting us do is there's a few that were I think it's 3 owners as of right now, but they're letting us really price their unit at whatever we want. They're not going to give any input until the end of the year. And so far those homes, their summer, every single weekend in summer's filled currently for those homes. Yes, their rate's probably about $150 less than what they got last year, but they're filled already. And then we also do a lot of marketing, like we do a lot of stuff on Facebook and email campaigns. We remarket to them as well, because for us, it's our direct bookings are about 53% of what we do. We don't do a whole lot of Airbnb. Vrbo's about 36% of what we do, and then the booking.coms, Airbnb, like I mentioned, all the other sites are beneath that. So we do a lot of direct stuff. So we do remarket, we do Facebook ads. We're like running 10% off coupons for summer, further discounting some homes that are already discounted from last year. But again, we're trying to get them filled, really build them up, and avoid having to wait and hold on and then just dump everything at the last minute, where I think a lot of people fell into last year, is just having to drop so quick last minute and then just sit and hold your breath. So that's where we're at currently.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I think for people listening, there's a little bit of a switch. We're talking to a lot of people who are managing, larger professional portfolios now, everyone here really. And there's a big switch when you go from being like a host to like a small entrepreneur to a larger company. And it's really the risk tolerance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at things at a portfolio level, yes, individual homes may be up and down, but your goal is to kind of get the portfolio up. You can't take the same risk. That's where base of business comes in. If you got 10 rooms, you don't build a base of business. You take the risk to book the ADR. But the larger you get, the more conservative you have to be. And kind of what you're all saying is really interesting to me, because when we were at DARM earlier in the year, we heard a lot of kind of data where, key data is saying, hey, looks like this year is going to be like last year, not going to be a super easy year. We're going to be pretty squeezed. People's wallets will be squeezed. Occupancy is going to be squeezed. There's still new supply. On the other hand, from these property managers like yourself and revenue managers, I'm hearing a lot of optimism, particularly about the higher season. And a lot of it is because of, I think, taking a more conservative approach, really looking at your own data, looking at that delta between the posted rates and what you actually actualize, and saying like, well, maybe I can cut the rate and still make more money, and getting into that kind of granularity. So I have heard from a lot of folks that the summer is pacing pretty well for them. They maybe are being more conservative. I have heard a lot of people like that mixed message is January still seems pretty weak, especially in the markets where it's not supposed to be weak, which is a little bit of a concern for me. But really paying attention to, like, one thing I noticed you all said, you all have heuristics for when your booking window should be in your different seasons. Really big thing to start to develop internally if you're a revenue manager or a property manager. Well, we're pretty much at time. We can go around the horn if anyone has a last kind of thing to say to the group. Otherwise, it's really been a pleasure talking with you guys. Rebecca, do you want to start us out? Just last sentence
Sure.
before we go?
Yeah. Yeah. No pressure. I think just in making your strategy for 2024, I think you do have to look at your supply from last year versus this year versus the previous year. I think there's some markets that are really seeing a huge number of rentals come on the scene, which is really playing a big role in the softening demand and just kind of ADRs. You need to know what you're up against. And I do think that there is a lot of power in understanding the growth in your market.
Awesome. Josh?
Yeah, so again, nice to talk to you all, and hopefully everyone kind of got a little insight on what we got to offer here down in Texas. But for us, really, and I think the key thing that's worked better than anything else that we do is remarketing and really getting people to book for now that have stayed before. I think half of all the direct bookings that we've gotten from January 1st to now has been someone using a coupon. So if you are using a company like Constant Contact or some email targeting company, and you're capturing those emails, that seems to work really well right now, because as I'm sure everyone's heard, Americans are more tempted to buy something if there's a percentage off. So it seems to work really well. And for us, our night minimums, they're 3 nights in the summertime and spring break, 2 nights everywhere else. And we're kind of holding firm on that. And then just really taking lessons from 23 and just not making the same mistakes and really trying to get ahead of it, like I'm sure everyone else is doing here, it seems like.
Ben?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the conversation, everyone. It's been good. I think probably much along the same lines as the other guys. Really, I think the thing that we're very much conscious of is the impact of additional supply in markets. I think across the globe, really, it's become more and more accessible for new inventory to come online, and we're definitely starting to feel that. I think we're still going to have loads of opportunity and probably undersupply in high demand periods, which we know the key summer holidays and so on. But it's really the shoulder season where we're having to get more creative and be more proactive in terms of pricing and revenue management models, and looking at different strategies outside of just pricing in terms of stay settings, looking at payment methods, payment terms, and all that type of stuff. It's definitely making us work a bit harder for our money from that side of things. I think, again, the key seasons are always going to be good, but really we're having to focus on making sure the shoulder seasons are delivering, that we're performing above the rest of the market in those.
Lance?
3 things. Use key data, work the bottom third of your inventory, and those units that are, as far as my year over year, I sort them that way pretty much every day, and just work on the bottom third. I'm a big fan of demand. Maybe you guys have noticed, but it seems like that once a property starts to book, that individual property will book out in a matter of a few weeks. And if a property is not performing well, particularly new homes, or if for some reason something's not performing well, I have no problems with going in and sprinkling in 2 or 3 different owner holds to create the illusion of demand, and watch what happens.
Interesting.
Just don't forget to take the owner holds out.
Awesome. And Henry, why don't you finish this out?
First off, just John, thank you for having me on. Thank everyone else for joining. We might have to make these 2 hours. I feel like an hour goes by really quick. But yeah, just a few quick things. Understand the demographic you're catering to. Watch their consumer spending habits. You can look up trends, look at 2023, how the market was, how the economy was, how it behaved. And then looking in 2024, if you can kind of predict the market and the economy, how it's going to behave, you can kind of see how that's going to pan out for you. And then also another big thing for me and everyone, I feel like, is go through your fees and try to minimize your fees as much as possible, because I know it doesn't just weigh heavily in search algorithms. It scares people away, really. So fees is a huge part, especially with the smaller units, like the condos, the 1-2 bedrooms. They weigh much heavier. It's like 30 to 50% of the total booking is just fees, and when people click in, kind of scares them away. But yeah, that's just my last piece.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate all of your guys' time today. We'll share this recording out. You guys are welcome to share, and then we do this every month. So really look forward to having you guys join us on a future session. And if anyone listening is a revenue manager managing a portfolio and interested in potentially participating, please feel free to reach out to me and I can put you on the list. Thanks so much for your time today, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.